what's with the hold up? White breath, big coat, got the cold touch. Can't hear too much of her shoulders. Don't sweat, this night isn't over. Don't stress, this love is a coaster. Jump up, jump down on my sofa. This air's too loud, the doja. Tryna ease you out. Take a deep breath, gonna calm you down. I hear this beat down deep inside. Don't wait to feel, don't wait to try. So what's with the hold up? If you come back to show up. So what's with the hold up? If you come back to move. What's with the hold up? If you come back to show up. So what's with the hold up? If you come back to show up. Hold up, slow touch. Always blowing up phones when the door shut. Deep breath, white nights. You should let in some air, you get stuck. Hurt feet as the tears rush. Cold sleep, keep a parent side. They don't know what you crying for. They don't know what you do to get onto the dance floor. How many times that it takes to convince you? How many times that I'm someone you want more? I'm trying to show you the things that I'm into, but every time we arrive at an ending, now I fear that I sound condescending. I know you hurt, but you know that I'm mending. We can step at home if you want to. I hear this beat down deep inside. Don't wait to feel, don't wait to try. So what's with the hold up? If you come back to show up. So what's with the hold up? If you come back to move. What's with the if you come back to show up.
Cuties and indeed patooties, and welcome to yet another edition of Mini RPG of the Week. My name is Noah Lake. I'm joined this evening by QDC, slash maybe Orion. I mean, like, I'm not convinced that you're Orion, but I'm going to roll with it. Orion, you're not going to believe it, but this evening we are bringing a whole new map to the people. I mean, ridiculous, I know.
That's wonderful. I could try my British accent, but it's going to sound absolutely horrendous.
You veered immediately into Braveheart Scottish, I feel.
It's somewhere British Isles sounding, okay? It's good
Sure.
enough.
Yeah. No. Definitely. And there are only 4 accents in the British Isles for sure as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Just four.
Look, we have a whole new edition of Mini RPG of the Week. We have a mapper who I don't believe we've ever had before on Mini RPG of the Week. So there's a lot to be excited for as we head into this edition 37.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder, is it a 25 or a 15-minute warm-up that we're going to have? Because this Season 2 has been a lot tougher on the players than Season 1 has been. And Season 2 being this tough has driven away a bit of the casual crowd compared to the really talented crowd. And the players who've come every single week, right? Starting to really get wrecked here by everything that's going on. Well, I mean, it's going to be tough, right? And for today, is it a 15 or 25 minutes?
It's a 15-minute warm-up. I can tell because I'm looking at the RPG server where that information has been posted. Because I'm sneaky like that. I do hold back information and don't tell you before we go live, QDC, and I'm sorry for that. It will be a 15-minute warm-up. Our mapper this week is Sorrow, a mapper who has been building RPG since TM2 2013 and has been playing the game for a few years before that. So, you know, lots to look forward to here, and has promised us a good little bit of scenery as we race across the rooftops of some skyscrapers. But as you kind of mentioned there as well, here in Season 2, some of the maps have been a little bit more technically challenging. The other thing Sorrow has promised is that tonight is going to appeal to hardcore RPG fans of that kind of real RPG style of difficult tricks, maybe having to take a couple of attempts to get it right, not going to be an easy, smooth run the entire way through. And as you've kind of mentioned as well, it's going to be a little bit tough for our casual players this evening.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's a lot to learn about RPG, right? Whether you're playing TM 2020 or TMNF, right? And I've done a few casts for TMNF RPG tournaments, and in fact, there's one coming up really soon. So those 5 to 10-minute maps are absolutely insane, and to condense it down into a 1-minute-ish map and bringing back the old vibes as well as bringing in some of the new toys such as water, plastic, and ice. It really brings everything together in a sense that it's just an improved upon version, but at the same time, if you've not been playing for that long, right, you're gonna really struggle on this. If you've had the experience of playing RPG on TMNF, I don't know if this track is necessarily going to be that much more difficult than just a regular RPG track.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the big difference between those old TMNF RPG maps and the more modern ones in TM 2020 is the acceleration penalty being much harsher in TM 2020. So a lot of those tricks that you can get away with, that you could build into the maps where players have very little space to work with, there tends to need to be a little bit more of a flow. Even when you're kind of deliberately building for a more trick-heavy style, there still tends to be just a little bit more of a flow in these TM 2020 maps because, hey, it's fun when the car is going fast, and even RPG mappers recognize that the players like to carry speed through their tricks, and so still should be intuitive. This map, I'm still expecting to see our players destroy it in fairly short order. I'm still expecting to see a lot of speed being carried through a lot of these tricks once we get onto the map, and we are expecting to see times, we've been told, around a 54-second mark, a high 54-second mark, and we'll see how well Sorrow has judged the map, how well he's judged his players when we do load in.
Well, Sorrow, being someone who's created maps for a long time, I don't doubt their assessment there. But maybe we could possibly see a 53, right? And that's just because we've seen how badly these players can push the boundaries, right? On these maps. Mini RPG of the week has just been destroyed week after week by these top players, right? Yannick, who keeps on getting some really fast times and getting first place half the time, I want to say. It's really difficult to engage and know exactly just how fast a player like Yannick will drive this map, right? Other players such as BMX might drive this map. So we don't know exactly where these players will land, but what I do know is that we'll have an exciting time here, as we'll probably have over 60 players playing, which last time I remember, we've been in the 50s to 70s mostly in Season 2 because of the high difficulty, right? But with a lower difficulty map, maybe we could see higher player counts as well. So if this map's really enjoyable, I think we'll see a lot more players coming in next week.
Could be. I'm going to make a call-out post very quickly on Deployer, who was sitting in the wrong server, so we have missed a couple of minutes of the warm-up here. But hey, we're in the right server now, and we're going to jump in 2 minutes into this warm-up on altitude training by Sorrow. And we're looking forward to seeing how this one goes. Right now, not seeing a whole lot here in the fog above the skyscrapers. And then we'll jump on to Nabla, who's just happily sitting in a hole. I would imagine probably watching a spectator somewhere in the background. And we'll see how this goes as Corzo does start us off on a run. And it is immediately tight.
Yeah, this is... I think he took mini RPG quite literally in this sense, right? The roads are extremely tight and narrow. This is claustrophobic. Is what I'd explain this map to be, and that is a very, very tight map. But you know what that means is that errors are going to be very egregious when they do happen, and when the players are going to try their best to get it through, it's going to be very, very tight towards the end, right? Because all the players will have a good chance at the, how can I say this, analyze the map and get it just right, as we can see Corzo here. Yeah, one mistake, but so far, really good run through of the map here for the audience. Not really seen them doing it too badly here, as nice little turns. It's very nice and hidden as well, right? So a lot of little hidden road pieces that you could use to your advantage, right? And as long as one of the CPs isn't hidden, oh, that's a nice little shortcut there I think Corzo's trying to get. Can you possibly do that?
It could well be. I know last week we saw the intended route of the map get ripped to shreds. It was very broken by the time we got to the end of it. I'm expecting maybe a little bit less here. It's this kind of claustrophobic mapping, as you said. Everything very tight, lots of blocks in the way. I think we're not going to be seeing as many cuts as we did last week, or indeed just total rerouting of the map. We'll see how that one does go. One of the things that was highlighted by Sorrow in his notes to us was that magnet block in the middle of the map that we saw Corzo go over in the middle. It does not automatically change the camera. There is no forced camera for the players, and you kind of talked about as well, one of those things that newer players might struggle with, right? Casual players who haven't played as much. Weird wall rides, loops where there isn't a forced camera change, where you're responsible for changing the camera yourself, is definitely something that I think a lot of newer players are potentially going to struggle with.
Yeah, I agree here, and we can see Orion. I mean, he's trying his best to climb up, right? But I wouldn't call this altitude training. I'd call this the city's under an earthquake right now and everything's shattering. That's what it feels like, right? Tight earthquake map, but honestly, it looks really, really solid with all these fragments and shattered pieces of road everywhere. Makes for a very, very interesting track, and of course you would not be able to build this in TMNF because it'd be practically impossible not to get a landing bug every 5 seconds, and it would not be very fun to drive. So to translate a map from TMNF into, or TM2 into Trackmania 2020 is very, very hard. So the fact that he's built this in a way that is very TM 2020 friendly, right, and not very TMNF or TM2 friendly, makes it very nice, honestly, because this it can't be transferred, right? So it's purely a TM 2020 pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess also, quick question, Sarah, like, what kind of skyscrapers have you been on recently? Because, goddamn, there's some broken up terrain on the top of these skyscrapers. I can't tell if it's a swimming pool or if there's just a big puddle on the top of this skyscraper as well, but there is a lot going on up here.
Eve gets our first sub-minute. Yannick's was really close, and everyone was right next to each other right there. Eve, Spanj, and Yannick's were all right there, right next to each other, all getting into the finish line at the same time. 1 minute times for everyone except for Heave, who gets a 59.4. He's the first one who gets the sub 1. Now, can we get anywhere near the author time before this timer expires? I would be inclined to believe that we.
Yeah, I mean, Ice immediately has gone to 56 seconds as well, all the way down there. 3 seconds faster than anyone else on the map. Is looking pretty good at the moment. Sponge likes, I'm not sure if that's someone who's renamed themselves up the top. I mean, look, Anix has a different name every week, it feels like. So, given that I'm not seeing Spammy Jr. up near the top of the leaderboard at the moment, I'm going to be like, yeah, maybe that's Anix.
You know what? If we just see a weird name we've never seen before who's doing okay, we just call them Anix, right?
Yeah, I think that's honestly smart.
Everyone's just Anix suddenly, right?
Yeah, there was look, it's tradition at this point. We'll call them Anix until we're proved wrong. We are going to see these players try and climb under the 1 minute mark, and yeah, half the time gone. The fact that players are still kind of 5-6 seconds away from that time, that's a strong author time that has been set, and it is definitely, I think, Sorrow proving that he does know the limits of his map. But this definitely a map that I think over the course of rounds, as players get more comfortable with every turn, as they start to learn it a bit better, our top players are going to be pushing this one further and further to the limits.
Right, because this is a very unorthodox map, right? We don't see many claustrophobic maps like this, right? Where everything is really tiny, mostly because we like to have a lot of space with our cars, right? We never want to hit any wall, and so the fact that the walls are so in tight here could make for a really stressful time here, right? Because not only are you in tight with the walls, which makes you all the more stressed, right? But during the rounds especially, just hitting anything could stress you out. Right?
I'm just trying to imagine playing rounds on this map. Like, I mean, because like you said, there's not a lot of speed at any point on this map. And so if someone makes a mistake, if the pressure is on, the temptation is just going to be to try and push harder. But pushing harder, trying to go faster isn't necessarily the play here. No,
it really isn't. There's a block, half a block, sometimes a space that you just can barely have, right? You can barely go through it. That ending, look at that. There's a raised piece of road there. If you crash into that, how like gut-wrenching is that, you know? Like, you're right there and suddenly you've got your heart in your mouth because, oh no, I could be overtaken here, I could be out just with that. And so you need to know your route, and it seems like the route can't be broken at the end here because of this checkpoint. So everything seems to be in order, right? We're probably not going to see any reroutes, luckily. And we're very unlikely to see any cuts. So overall, I really like this map. Overall, I think this will be one of the few maps that we get a lot of pluses on, even though it's a very unorthodox and very, I don't want to say difficult, because it's not because it's claustrophobic that it's difficult, right? It's because of the claustrophobic nature of the map that brings in most of the difficulty. It's not necessarily because the map itself is extremely difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a map that is going to favor our long-time RPG players, the people who know what the awkward transitions that RPG mappers like throwing through the maps feel like, the ones who can keep their car under control even when the wheels start to wobble out from underneath them. We'll see how that goes as some of those players do start to head up towards the top of the leaderboard. We'll jump on board for Yannick for what should be, at this point, hopefully a pretty clean run through the map. As you can see, he is now keeping speed. That turnaround there, we've seen a few players fall off the edge. I think we'll see a few more during rounds. This is looking clean. Again, that's an edge. Players are going to fall off. Up onto a bit of pipe driving. We don't see an awful lot of it, and that is Yannick falling off the pipe. You know, I mean, pipe by the, you know, new to Trackmania 2020 in a lot of ways in terms of just how ubiquitous it is, especially in some good old-fashioned royal maps. But we don't see it a huge amount in RPG for kind of how much it feels like it is an RPG block almost exclusively.
It's weird to think of it that way, right? Because when you think of these pipes, you're thinking obviously Royale, right? You're thinking of royal. You think of them as royal blocks, and so it's really tough to really get that stigma out of the way, because everyone who sees a pipe nowadays, right, even in the campaign, are like, oh, this is just a Royale map, right? Why is this not a Royale map? And so with that kind of sentiment, it's kind of difficult to incorporate a pipe without angering a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so this is why we'll never see the ice pipe being implemented, as we see Yannick's with a beautiful time, but Lars, Ice have both gotten themselves into the 54s already, and Lars really, really close to that coveted 53 that I was talking about. Low 54, huh? Sorrow, I think you'll be deep in your sorrows real soon when you see that these guys are able to do 53s.
Yeah, and look, we talked about how last week the map was kind of broken. Very, very broken. And Lars definitely led the charge on that one, picking up a win ultimately as well. He did a lot of the rerouting. He was the one who got to the grips with the map and with where everything was very quickly. It could be back-to-back wins for Lars here. I mean, as kind of an old-school player, as a player who is very good at RPGs in every sense of the word, and especially this kind of transitional style, as he proved last week as well. I could see Lars going for the back-to-back here.
Yeah, honestly, I'd like to see a new face towards the top today with such an unorthodox map, right? We could definitely see an unorthodox player winning it, right? So, obviously, you have your Yannick, you have your Lars, you have your Ice, right? But
yep.
Lucius, right?
Yep.
You'd like to see them towards for a change, right? See them get a win. That'd be nice. They're pretty good on top of that,
I'd be on board for that. Absolutely. And I think up there as well, you know, we're talking about Sponge Likes probably being Anix, but it's a German car. So, I don't know, man. It could just be someone else. It could be someone new at the top of the leaderboard, or it could just be someone else under a different name sneaking down in there as well. For up near the top as well, Soma, Nico up there too, Tunix, Marius near the top. It's been a couple of weeks since we've seen Marius getting a top finish as well, so maybe this is a week Marius makes a comeback. There is a camera change, because I've been talking to Deployer in the background about how it didn't seem to follow the camera changes depending on what mode we were in. I think maybe we just watch Yannick go through that entire wall ride earlier without doing a camera change, or maybe it doesn't swap into camera 3. Who knows, man? Trackmania Spectator is weird.
So, yeah, the Trackmania Spectate is weird. So, unless there's a forced camera change...
Deployer forced it.
Yeah, so what Deployer is doing right now is that he's changing the camera
manually.
Mid-Spectate. So, he's got extra work to do, poor guy.
Yeah, we're keeping him on his toes this week.
I think he has to do Alt Camera 2, if I recall correctly, to be able to do that. So to change your camera in spectator mode, you have to press on Alt. Yeah, exactly. So you can change your camera perspective. So that's what he's doing. He's got plenty of work already on his hands, and on top of that, we have to add this onto him. So poor guy. He's got a lot to do.
He has to listen to us the entire time. Other people can tune out, but like, he's stuck, man. That's rough.
Yeah, he's stuck. You know who else is stuck? Sorrow, seeing a 53.7, and we're not even out of the warm-up. Like, that hurts, right? That hurts right in the feels, because you see after that, you know that during the rounds they're going to go balls to the wall some rounds, and we already know, oh god, there could be 52s.
There could be 52s. I mean, look, they're still a little way off, but this is definitely a style of map that you can just keep pushing, because every single jump has the potential to shave off tenths, really. You know, it's and I think we are still going to see some of them get shaved off. This water section as well, it seems to be consistent. At least it seems to be safe on the landings. Yogg is getting a little bit lost in the middle of it too. But, you know, I mean, there is always the risk with water that things are going to feel a little bit rough. But with the dirt to dry off your wheels at the end there, things should be safe for our players.
The thing is, as well, right, is when these players are going to gain speed off of a corner, risking it a lot, right, they're going to bring more momentum into the next one. So they're going to gain not just speed because of, not just time because of the speed that they got out of the corner with, but it's also because of the exit speed, right? They're going to bring in a lot more overspeed, more so than what they normally would have. And so that's what's going to really bring the bacon here. That's what's going to bring the time down. Just 2-3 turns faster than the others, and suddenly you're up by 5 times.
Absolutely, and that really transition onto the pipe as well, I think that's going to be a big one. We saw Luce's was very clean onto it there, but if you slow down a little bit to try and, you know, get it cleanly, if you're a little bit afraid of it, with good reason, that's going to definitely catch a few people out. This is going to be, and I'm going to warn everyone now, I think a very messy week up until probably our top 10 and maybe even deeper. Because it's going to be hard to keep track of who's doing what. Players are going to be making mistakes right up until the end. It's just that type of map. And we're looking forward to seeing the chaos, seeing how it unfolds, seeing how far players can push the map by the time we get into that top 5, by the time we get into our finals. And I'll say it early, QDC, I think this is going to be one of those finals that is decided by a mistake early or near the middle of the map, rather than being one that comes down to the wire. It just feels like when the pressure is on, this map is just going to be brutally difficult.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest problem here, right? Because by the end of it, you know what everyone's going to be capable of, and you know that you need to push just as much as they do. And so the problem is really going to be, can you push without crashing? And I think the biggest problem with this map, when it's going to come down to the final 10 even, is everyone's going to start pushing, and you're going to have like 5 of the players crashing out. And in the grand final, right, with only 2 players left, right, you're going to probably see the same situation. As you say, someone's going to crash out in the first 10 seconds or the first 20 seconds. It's very, very likely that that happens.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, that reactor checkpoint is going to be another spot that's going to brutalize a few people, especially coming as it does on the heels of that wall ride, which we saw players failing as well in the middle of it. It's all around a map with definitely some very RPG tricks, definitely some difficult ones. We're going to see how our players deal with it tonight. 60 players on the map, 3 dots as the server has a little bit of a think about whether or not it actually wants to let people onto this one. 4 players will be eliminated in round 1 of week 37. Best times down into the 53. That's going to mean probably about 1 minute and 40 seconds for players to finish this map, and that's going to be a tall order for a lot of them.
You really think only 4 get eliminated?
I absolutely do not think only 4 get eliminated.
How many? All right, we got 60 players.
I got it right last week. I got it bang on last week. Yeah, for the first time ever, I called it correctly, and I'm going to rest on those laurels. It's your turn, QDC.
all right, I'm going to say we're going to lose 14 players.
Ooh, that's a lot. I think I'd go slightly lower. I think I'd go with 9 players this week.
I think there's too many tricks, right? One player might not be able to do the reactor. One player might not be able to do the spiral magnet, right? And so it's really going to come down to how many players don't know how to do one part, right? And how many players have made too many mistakes. Already, we see 4 players down below 20 seconds, way more than 20 seconds down. 6 players are already practically out of this unless they get their act together here. But like Nerad is so far behind and he's not getting this checkpoint, and I think it's over for Nerad. So a lot of players already, you can count them out. At least 6 of them, I want to say, are out. So that 9 prediction, it could be right, but I feel like 14 was the right call because this map's very difficult for the beginners, right?
Yep.
This is more about the experienced players today. The experienced players will love this map, but the more casual player base, more like me, right? Players like me would not be able to finish this map.
That's fair. Look, I mean, we've met our experienced players before, so I'm still expecting a couple of minuses after someone gets knocked out by the reactor checkpoint in the top 10. So, in general, sentiment is definitely going to be higher among them. 10 players eliminated. I was off by 1. All right, nearly managing to repeat it. And some good players knocked out as well. Vinch knocked out. Did I see Yorsh knocked out as well in there?
Yes. You did.
So some good players already being claimed. Who will drop out in round 2, as we're now down to 20 rounds remaining? We'll skip right over round 2 into round 3 as a result, with 51 players remaining. I think we're still potentially going to see more than 4 players knocked out in this round.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we might see 5 players eliminated this time around. Maybe I exaggerated a bit with 14, right? Because I'm expecting a little bit more of a casual player base, right, playing today. But it seems like it's a lot more of the players who've been playing a lot more, right? A lot of names that I recognize who've been playing mini RPG for a long time, right? And other RPG maps as well. Orion's still in by some miracle. Let's see if he can stay in. He's currently in last place, but overtakes 1. He's tentatively through this section. Oh no, he misses the checkpoint, and now he's gonna jump off the tower. Can he get it through here? On the 3rd time of asking, yes, he does. He's not last, but he's he's also in trouble. He's in big trouble here.
Hey, that's good to know, though. That's good info. You can have way too much speed through that wall ride.
Yes.
And crash into a ceiling afterwards. So definitely worth knowing and worth us keeping an eye on 4 players at the end. Because you know what that means as well, QDC? That's just another point where players can risk when it comes down to it. You know, you can try and carry more speed through that wall ride, but you can carry too much speed, and that's going to be worth keeping an eye on as we get towards the top half of the map. 30 seconds remain here. Orion down there at the bottom. Hachi, Mange-moi le Bolet, and Rhodes alongside him as well. Rhodes is going to get across the line, but it is in 48th place. 4 players will drop on this round, and it is the 4 who sit in those spots and have done for a little while.
Man, good job by Panda there. He actually overtook Rhodes right at the end in the last checkpoint to win that one between the 2 of them, and Orion got this is unfortunate.
Watch him from a distance. Yeah, I think that's the right decision. Get that camera as far away from him as possible. Doesn't even crack the top 50. Brutal in the end. But hey, it's a tricky map and it will continue to claim lives. I'd love to see a map like this just be the cup of the day one day. I mean, can you imagine if this had been a cup of the day?
Oh my goodness.
I think that's sometimes when we have a mini RPG of the week and I'm like, God, this would be such a funny cup of the day.
It really would be, but it'd also be interesting what the player base would think about this map, right?
Yeah.
It definitely be a very difficult map. I think I would definitely rate
you'd lose well over half the field in the first round, I feel like, after about division 15 to 20.
Right,
like, it literally would be
right?
like one person fights their way through with a 2-minute time, and then, like, literally 30 people get knocked out as a result.
Because what would division 30-40 would look like, right? What would those divisions look like? And the map, very interesting, right? It might capture the attention and imagination of newer players as well, right? So it's not necessarily a bad idea to put a map like this. It is for the skill level, but when it comes down to how many players will see it and be like, oh wow, I want to create something unique like this, right? Where like they realize just how much the editor can be played with. It's also a good idea maybe to implement that. So there's pros and cons to it. I definitely think I wouldn't do it, but at the same time, it definitely would be good for a few people. It definitely would only benefit the few compared to the many.
Yeah, absolutely. Yogg is close to the borderline here. Should get across in 43rd. Velto Rio will drop out in 44th. Quantix and Wallagen down there as well. A tough round. We're seeing already it is getting tight there at the back. We've had a couple of close rounds over the last 2, as Yogg was not that far away from elimination. I mean, ultimately a few seconds, but one mistake could cost a couple of seconds on this map. And honestly, if the player in front, Velto Rio, hadn't made one, that could have been Yogg dropping out just there.
That could have been Yogg dropping out, and that would have been disastrous for him.
So just look at the scoreboard for a second, QDC, and look at the player who currently has the 11th time on the leaderboard.
Aww. That's sad. It's cool, and it's sad at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, that is 10th in 11th at the moment, and honestly, I'm rooting. Maybe that's Anix, all right? Who knows? Who can tell?
Hey, listen,
on these things?
if she renamed herself to 10th, right, and gets herself 10th, I think she'd be happy, right?
Yeah, that'd be massive props.
That would be. I mean, as long as you're not throwing, right? That's pretty much the only thing. If unless you plan to throw and get top 10, right? That's just a Chad move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. You're in
absolutely.
10th place, and you see like there's only 10 players left, and your name is 10th, and you just throw on purpose. Yeah, that's kind of a Chad move.
Yeah. I kind of, like, you do have to reflect it a little bit at that point, but hey. There's still a long way to go before that, and we are seeing the reactor boost potentially claiming a life here as Flamey will touch off a wall. Still now in 40th place, is still hunting to get back into it. Has climbed all the way up to 37. That reactor boost claimed a couple more off camera as well. Flamey will touch a wall though on the way out of this water. Gets overtaken by at least one car, it looks like, but is trying to overtake Patrick in turn. Heading towards the back half, and Monkey is stuck on a wall. That's going to be a respawn, my friend, and you are going to have to go a long way back as a result. NTY in 40th place at the moment, trying to catch up, coming up to the finish line now. Monkey is still stuck, and I don't know, is that a French name? Is he saying monkey, or is he just monkey? It's hard to tell. Either way, he's in the danger zone, and he is going to be crossing the line just behind Panda and Monkey. They're kind of similar, but hand in hand, they will drop out of the competition here.
Well, it looks like he won't be monkeying around anymore, as Jaxie is going to come in last place here, with Seafill having DNF. So, Panda, Monkey, Jaxie, Seafill out. That one, very nice round, though, by a lot of those players right near the top. And towards the back, I mean, it's still slow for those players who are out, but it just happens, right? There's just some of those rounds where you have a bad checkpoint, right? And you just constantly hit a wall. And because you get stressed, because you've hit a wall, right? You hit another wall because of how close the walls are. And so it really comes down to nerve management. This map, I'd say, is nerve management central. If you want to test out your nerves, I would definitely have played in this.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I think what's particularly interesting to me in terms of what's going on at the other end of the field from what we're looking at is that for once, a few rounds in, 6 rounds in, we're not really seeing improvements on the times that our players set during the warm-up. You know, they set a good time, and now it's just focus on consistency. It's making sure that you're not making mistakes as you go on through, and we're still seeing those mistakes come through. A player like Nico, who is currently sitting inside the top 10 in terms of times, is sitting now in the danger zone, joined by Heave, who's a very good RPG player, now sitting at the back as well. And this reactor section has put Nico a long way back.
Yeah, players like Lars, Ruhax, and Corzo all up there at the moment with pretty nice times in the 54s, right? And they're consistently doing it. I mean, Lars with a 54.1 pretty much ties his PB. It's not much behind, right? But as you said, there's a lot of players who you don't expect to be down here in the red, who are fighting to stay alive. And look at this, it's so close between these two as Shinix gets through just as Silva, Skippy, Heave, and Jam are out. Man, that's surprising, actually, those bottom two. Heave out, Yam out? Really? It's big surprises, right? Jam being in 15th as well, and if I look properly, where's...
Not in the top 15, which did surprise me as well. I think Heave was just not particularly enjoying the map, would be my guess, and is going to drop out in a relatively low position. We don't often see Heave go out that low. And that, I think, is a sign as well that this map, it's suiting some people. It is definitely a different style than a lot of our mini RPG maps are, just in terms of it being almost more RPG-like than it often is. Here's Nabla, who has the word 12th over their head. And so, look, I don't know, maybe something weird is just going on with Spectator, because maybe 10th isn't actually a name and Spectator is just doing something odd.
Have you seen 10th around at all?
No, that's what I mean. I think Spectator's just doing something funky.
Yeah, maybe possibly. Who is your winner so far of this match? Because Corzo's been very consistent, as Jaxie points out. Jaxie saying that Corzo's their favorite to win today, and Corzo actually really consistent today. He's been doing very, very well. How's Heave still in?
Great question, honestly. Does Heave know that they're still in, or are they sitting on the start line still?
Stuff is being weird because Yam is also in there.
Yeah. Okay. Something funky has happened, but you know what? We'll see how things shake out at the end of the round. I think something weird has just gone on with Spectator because it's renaming people to positions and things like that. Ultimately, once we get down to our top 10, I'd imagine there'll be few enough players on the server that'll have figured itself out. Yeah, we'll drop out 2 rounds in a row apparently, so you know what? That's rough, buddy. But
so will Heave.
So will Heave. But either way, we'll see what the names actually are. There goes Heave for a second time. There goes Flamey this time around as well. Fighting Stain and Yam will drop out again. So you know what? Either way, they're gone. And that's all that matters, I think.
If we see more of Heave, right, we with a heavy heart, then we have to say that we disqualify him, right?
Yeah, at least in our hearts, even if the scoreboard won't get rid of him, we'll say he's gone. I think he is gone now. I'm not seeing the name anywhere at the moment. I am seeing V3, Vevolution. I'm going to go with Vevolution because that's fun to say. Player from Loading, anyway, is sitting at the back at the moment. Alex just in front and a decent turn. Gets a little bit caught on the wall, but still managing to accelerate away from it. That climb, Have you ever played the game? It was like a kid's game called Screwball Scramble, and you got like a ball bearing, and you had like a bridge you had to get it over, and it was a bunch of it was a mechanical toy. And if I showed you it, you might know what it is.
I might, but I never had it as a kid. I know
Sure.
I probably saw it at like another kid's house. Right?
I feel like, yeah, it was one of those things that, like, if you saw it, or if a lot of people saw it, they'd be like nostalgia. Anyway, it starts off where you have to get the ball bearing over a bridge by, like, pressing it up and down a bunch, and it, like, the bridge flips up and down. And there's the middle section of the map where it's like up and down and up and down, and it's going over that, and it's look, it's the same thing. They're the same picture.
See this? Oh, you've not actually seen it.
No, I haven't. I'm just saying, yeah, you could look it up. Absolutely, you could look it up. Either way, Yogg is going to drop out. Ryu Hacks, Nico's going to go as well. One of the players in that top 15, and Vevolution, the player from Loading, joining them in the bottom 4 as well, as we are now starting to lose some pretty good players, and we'll see how things go as we head inside our top 30. As things will only continue to get harder. We are still seeing, though, a lot of maybe more unfamiliar names near the top of the leaderboard. Players we don't see all that often. As a very different style of map, suiting a very different set of players.
Oh, man.
You actually know what I meant. And honestly, QDC, if you didn't, at least one person knew what I was talking about. And look, as long as someone recognizes that the middle of the map is like Screwball Scramble, then we're good. Listen, I'm going to get a picture of Screwball Scramble, and it's going to be my picture when we cut back at the end.
that will really screw up a lot of people, honestly, I think. As right now, we've only seen 5 players get the author time. Do you think a lot of players are just holding back and hoping to just not die at this point? Right? Of course, they're trying to go fast, but at the same time, just trying not to die.
Yeah, like, again, that's what we still haven't seen improvements really at the top of the board, you know? I think Ryu Hacks may be the only player to have improved to time since we finished off our warm-up rounds. I think that's genuinely unusual on Mini RPG of the Week. Like, usually the players at the top are continuing to push, they're continuing to get faster and faster at this point, but we still only have a couple of players inside that 54-second mark, never mind the 53 that Ice has managed to get.
Oh, Hazard just got a new PB, but he was ahead by like a second. That could have been a 53, actually, out of Hazard there. That is, yeah, Hazard, yeah, he might not have a very large PB at the moment, but he's on that doorstep, right? So even though you only see a couple players at the top, he's still capable of doing it, and that's what's important, right? Is that if he stays around long enough and keeps on pushing, as he has been, he'll eventually get a good time in, and he'll probably beat Ice with that time as well, right? We've not seen Ice at all, even in the top 4. A player that I've seen a lot, though, towards the top has been Lucker's Turbo, a player who does a lot of RPG, right? A player who's very used to challenge maps and RPG-style maps, and this is kind of like a mix of both, right? It's both a challenge and an RPG map in a sense, so this would definitely be up Turbo's alley, right? This is definitely something that I think his chat has really been enjoying to see him play as well, because he's not been doing bad whatsoever. He's obviously not towards the the top, right? In fact, I don't even see him in the top 15 times. Oh, there he is.
He's 14th.
But
yeah.
I think he's just been consistently doing these sub 1 times, and that's good enough to stay in for the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, and it has been for a few players. Marius, though, at the moment, in that bottom 4. And the Safemeister himself, not setting the fastest times on this map, but has been consistent up until this point. Is going to just slow down, take it easy, line himself up properly, and go flying through the reactor, and that'll gain him back a lot of time. Looker's Turbo is actually the player just in front. Another car off to the side, though, and they've managed to get some overtakes. They should be safe. Up into 18th place goes Marius. Looker's Turbo still just in front of him, as they will be being chased down by Flo, by Nather. Nather is getting a little bit awkward, is bouncing around the place, and will get overtaken by Flo as well, who is now in the safe spots, and that is Flo staying safe by overtaking Nather. And it was one bad transition on the second last turn that costs Nather his spot inside the rest of this competition.
Yeah, and I mean, that was really tight for both Marius and Flo, right? Two really good players who found themselves in a situation where they need to fight out of the pit there. And instead, those that fall in are Wolfie, Nalax, Nopix, and Nather. Nalax, again, a really good player, but just unable to stay consistent enough to get into the top 10s consistently.
Yeah. Hey, it's tough out there. It is a pit. It is gaping between these players, below these players at the moment, and a few more of them will fall into it as we go. This is we've talked about the claustrophobia on this map as well. I will admit, one of the things I hate is like drops into infinity off Trackmania maps. I'm not even that afraid of heights, but there's something about it that just, it gives me the willies, man. I don't love it. And so these turns here, where you're just turning on the edge and trying to keep speed up, I don't love them, and I would not be having a great time playing this map.
It would give you vertigo without.
It does. It genuinely does.
And is it because it's on the side as well, right? You're driving sideways
not great.
on the wall.
I don't love it. Honestly, credit to these players, but this is not a map I'd be hunting. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, there was a Cup of the Day map that was really, really well loved. I think it was Obsidian Tower. I think it was called. You start off at the top, right, and you need to go down a tower, right, which you're practically on the side of it the entire time.
Yeah.
Right, you're sideways the entire time, looking down. It is pretty mesmerizing. I think it's called Obsidian Tower, but someone could tell me otherwise. I'm pretty sure Obsidian was in the name, as Oran finding themselves in the wrong way. That is sad for them. Oran is out. Shadow Calyx, Hostile, and Punk Punks all out, and not even a top 10 for them.
Yeah, and I believe the name 10th has changed to NA on the leaderboard. Still no idea who it is, but hey, we'll figure it out eventually, I'm sure. As Nabla has DNF'd already this round. That's going to be tough for them. Mr. Rick down in 14th place as well, and Flo still clinging on. Valeur de Porc is down here as well, but with one DNF already from Nabla, there is only one spot up for grabs, or down for grabs. Only one spot at risk either way, and there are a few players competing for it at the moment.
Obsidian High Rise. There you go. I found it. Very wonderful map. I would honestly give it a try if I were you. It's a very mesmerizing map, but if this map's giving you vertigo, you might want to change your pants before doing it, you know?
Yeah, look, not for me, alright? Not entirely for me. I think I'll be okay. We're going to watch Mr. Rick as he attempts to chase down any other players remaining in this one, trying to get across this line. Valeur de Porc is just in front, and a wall touch will mean an acceleration penalty, which means Valeur de Porc is a little bit further out of reach. This last transition, trying to gain speed, trying to keep up. I think everyone's crossed the line safely in front, though. Mr. Rick will cross the line in 14th place. We'll figure out if the scoreboard is telling the truth, if Nabla did indeed DNF, or if Valeur de Porc will also be dropping out here. Looks like Nabla's gone, unless they show up in the next round.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, right? Maybe they just show up randomly, right?
Yeah,
look,
why not?
Mr. Rick, Nabla, I don't see them.
No. And I do see Valeur de Porc. Sometimes the scoreboard lies to you when someone has a momentary disconnect and tells you they DNF'd even when they didn't. But no, it looks like it was safe that time. Maybe not safe. Valeur de Porc, who managed to stay in the last round, skin of their teeth this time around, is in the danger zone, but has Hazard just in front of them, and an awkward transition is going to mean a lot of the field racing away from them.
I'm surprised you still keep calling them Valeur de Porc, even though you could just easily call them Sealer of Pork, right?
I could, yeah. but like translating someone's name, it feels like a step too far, you know? That's just
Really?
disrespectful.
I do that sometimes, just
No, I
for the
definitely
funnies.
could.
No,
He's
so
looking-
there's someone who was playing earlier, right, with all the Roman numerals. That's a number, right? And so even though it looks like Zlig,
Yeah, I mean, that's different, though.
it's a Roman numeral. Well, yeah, but that's a translation still.
Are we?
It is a
going to lose-
translation.
Okay, are we going to? We're not going to lose Yannick. It looks like we might lose Flo.
Well,
We might lose
it's
Tunix.
gonna
This
be
has been a
close,
tight race
though.
at the end. Flo's managed to get that turn, and Tunix will drop out, along with the stealer of Pork, who couldn't steal his way back into the top 11.
Sadly for Valar de Paul, finds himself out of there, and so does Tunix, actually. That's really surprising. Tunix,
Yeah.
a really good driver, as he writes minus in chat, Valar de Paul does. And that's not too surprising, because he's just outside the top 10 and is probably tilting about.
I
More
think,
so than
honestly,
that.
we're going to see minuses from everyone except whoever wins from this point forward. There's only going to be one person left happy at the end of this, because every other elimination, I think, is going to be a result of a mistake. It's going to be players getting a little bit caught up on the road border somewhere. It's going to be players with a bit of trouble. And speaking of trouble, that is our current record holder, Ice, at the very back, having made that mistake and now trying to overtake Marius. But if one player on this map at the moment has the speed to catch back up, it is Ice. Marius, maybe not, hasn't been setting the world alight with his time so far tonight, is going to have to do a lot of work. He's going to potentially overtake Maggie here, but still needs one more to stay in. There was Looker's Turbo respawning, so that is the one they needed.
Yeah, everyone's just dying left, right, and center, right? Obviously, everyone's making mistakes, but everyone's relatively close. And so despite the fact that there's been a mistake here, oh no, Turbo's through, but he's gonna need a reset. Maggie does as well, and so this could be really tight here between the two of them through the water section. Maggie's just slightly ahead, and look at this, Turbo just slightly behind. He does not clip, and it's so close between the two of them, but they're both in the outs. They're on the outside looking in. No one's made a mistake in the ending, so they're both out in the end. Oh my goodness, Lucius was so close. Oh, but you know what? They were fighting for a position in the wonderful, wonderful place called Liquipedia.
Yeah, hey, and it goes to Looker's Turbo. He'll get his page today. He'll be on that Liquipedia page. And for edition 37, that's feeling good. It's been an unusual one, but we're still going to see a lot of familiar names inside this top 10. Spongelight's potentially the only one, I think, really, that we don't recognize. But also, I'm still willing to be corrected and be told that that is someone that, yeah, no, we know them well and they've just changed their name. We'll find out. It probably won't be now. It'll be eventually. It is Luce's holding on at the moment, though, managed to climb back out. And this really does feel like a round that is going to be very competitive, maybe for the first time this evening. Yeah,
this one's going to be really, really close, even though Flo is completely out of it. Look at Yannick's here. He's on the bubble, right? So he needs to overtake someone at some point. That's going to be Marius right now, who's now back up on the bubble. Ahead of him is still Yannick's, which is a scary thing to think about, as Lucius also makes a mistake. He was on orange last time around. He was on the bubble, but he was not the bubble boy. Is Marius completely out now, and there's no way really to catch back up. This section here isn't what kill people, and Flo, he's just adding more insult to injury here. A little bit of salt in the wound as he'll be out, but it's Hazard!
What?
Where did Hazard go?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. He crashed out somewhere and Hazard will drop. Marius will stay in. I thought he was gone when he slowed down to line up that reactor one more time, because he really is taking his time on that section of the map. But it's Hazard who makes a mistake at the end. It's Hazard who drops out. And we're going to see how it goes. Worth noting as well, Lars has just claimed the best time on the server in that last round. We talked about players not necessarily improving their times. There goes Lars, last week's winner, now looking for a second. And Corzo will full crash and go a long way back. He is seconds behind the rest of the field. Spongelight's still in with a chance to catch, though.
Yeah, but the Bavaria 2 driver here is trying to catch up to Marius, who's been safing his way, but he's been making mistake after mistake, right? It's a miracle. He's still in despite all the mistakes he's made. Hazard being out was, it looks more and more like a PayPal the more I think about it, right? So Marius right now currently on the bubble. Is he gonna be the bubble boy? As there's only gonna be 5 players left after this one, and Spongelike is right ahead of him. Can he keep it together here? It's gonna be close between the two. Oh, it's a clip, but so for Marius as well. They're right ahead. There's a mistake from Lars, but it's Lucius, sorry, but it's not gonna be enough. And Corzo also out. Corzo out, ladies and gentlemen. So That is rough for Curzo. Hazard writes minus around too late, I do want to add, as the top 5 have now been selected.
Yeah, top 5 we have, and it's a good top 5. It's top 5 that I think are going to provide some entertainment value for sure. We have Los Marius, who has been safing his way through the map. The top 7 finish for him still very strong. There is a mistake on the first checkpoint from Lucis, who is now under the gun, is going to be chasing hard. This next checkpoint, any mistakes there, Sponge Light's holding it together. It looked dicey for a second there, but he'll be fine. Over the scramble we go, as Lucis is still looking for that opening, looking for that opportunity, looking for the mistake.
Oh.
But there's a mistake from Lucis instead, and it's exactly what we talked about at the top of the evening. This is this type of map where one mistake will lead to another as you push, as you try to take risks to get back into it.
Yeah, and at this point, with how far behind Lucius is, it's going to be very, very tough for a tall ask for him to just get out of here, especially because the second half is a lot easier than the first half, or not easier, sorry, but more consistent from the players. And so, if it does end like this, with Yannick's in 4th, Sponge-like in 3rd, Ice in 2nd, and Lars in 1st, then we're going to see 4 different teams fighting for this win into the breach, which is Lars's team. You got Team Pulse with Ice. You got Bavaria2 with Sponge-like, and Team BDS from Yannick's. Who do you got winning today here?
I'm looking for Lars to do it 2 weeks in a row, man. I genuinely think he's on form. He has been driving incredibly quickly for the last 2 weeks, and he has been consistent. He's, I think as well, for me, the only player in this top 4 who has been continually improving over the course of the evening.
So you think that he's going to go from into the breach into the win?
Yeah, he's going to do it for Magi. Who is, I think, for reference, just been announced as the commentator for Into the Breach. Yeah. There was a reason behind that, and Yannick is going to full crash, so all of a sudden, he's going to struggle a little bit. It is wild how often the first checkpoint has claimed lives this evening.
Yeah, it's actually been really tough because it's one that you really want to risk, right? It's definitely a must-risk corner to gain more speed out of the exit, and Yannick's, I mean, he continues to push, trying to get faster and faster. Instead, he's losing time because the more you risk, the more risk that you run into a wall. This map is definitely one that you do not want to trifle with.
No. It is not a trifling matter, but Lars is crashed, and Lars is slow, and Sponge-like is there as well. And Lars, he needs a mistake again from Yannick's or Sponge-like in front of him. He needs something. He might just have speed. He might not need the mistake at all. It's up to Lars to not make a mistake, though. Sponge-like will make the mistake, and Lars will stay alive in the competition. He will claim 3rd place. Ice well clear of the cluster that was the rest of the pack on that round.
Man, that is a tough one for Sponge-like. That was a really good run from Sponge-likes, honestly. And a good run from Bavaria2 as well, all things considered. A lot of Bavaria2 players playing these RPG tracks. But, yeah, that's the first time I think that they've had such a good finish as Ice.
Come on, man.
Another player.
Every round, there's been a crash at the start. As last time around, there were mistakes in front that allowed Yannick to come back into it, that allows Lars to come back into it, and ultimately costs Sponge-like his tournament life. Will Ice manage to see the same in front of him? It is Ice just making another mistake, though. Too much speed carried. Not a double respawn quite, but not far off it. Is going to now be heading into a very, very difficult deficit to catch up on.
And if you're Sponge-likes, right, how devastated are you? Because you made that mistake, but you're only 3 seconds behind a 54, so you're on 57, right? And right now, Ice definitely does not have a 57 on his hands here. As Yannick's, he clips, but it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. He's only lost a second, as that's a 54 from Lars. Yannick's comes in, and Ice on a 1-1. That is so sad there for poor Sponge-likes. He could have been in the top 2. But it just comes down to between Yannick's and Lars. And this is a fight for the ages.
It is. It's been called in the chat by Lucker's Turbo El Clasico. No crash on the first checkpoint. That's all I want to see. I want to see this one go down to the wire. Lars, early on, will touch and will be a little bit behind. But look, that's nothing on this map. They've made it through the first checkpoint. They'll be fine from here on out, surely. Yannick is risking on the inside, and that's allowed Lars to catch back up a little bit as his wheel does get over that border. And it's Yannick pushing and Lars off the edge, but he double respawns. And he's not too far behind. He is behind. But how far is it? It looks to be about a second and a half. It's a little bit all right. But there's still room for mistakes to be made in the back half of the map.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to risk here if you're Lars. Obviously, you are the fastest player on track, and you could try to go for it, but Yannick's could also make a mistake here. There you go. That's it.
The timing, Yannick's will flip. How much of that is his fault? How much of that is just an inconsistent plastic roof bounce? It's a staple of Mini RPG of the Week, the inconsistent plastic roof hit. And it's not been one we've seen for a few weeks. We love to see it brought back. We love to see Lars going back to back 2 weeks in a row. He starts off 2023 with a bang for Into the Breach. And he will take week 37 of Mini RPG of the Week.
Into the victory for Lars indeed. Yannick goes down in second place. I think he could still be happy with his performance. He was not the fastest player on track, and so the fact that Yannick was able to stay up there with his consistency alone speaks for itself. Same with Ice. He was fast, but he was not the fastest player on track. That definitely goes over to Lars, who was not just fast, but also pretty consistent. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. That's a wonderful Mini RPG of the Week. What do you think?
Look, I think it was great. Look, I desperately need a haircut. I'm re-entering my Edgar Allan Poe phase, and hey, that was definitely a fun one all the way through. A tense fight at the very end. Fun to see. And yeah, I mean, look, anytime we get Lars and Yannick, two players their caliber in a final, it's going to be a good time. Look, I promised it as well. This is Screwball Scramble. I mean, do you recognize it? Does this spark memories in QDC? I hope it does for someone in chat. It definitely does for me. I don't even know where I played it.
I had a similar game as a kid. It was called Mousetrap.
Oh yeah,
you had to bring a ball bearing.
Yeah, that's a board game. This one is more of a game of skill and reflex and the rest. Either way, that bridge at the start is brutal and just very frustrating. And honestly, that middle of the track almost identical to it. Reminded me of it immediately. So hey, that's it for week 37. We are powering through season 2 here already over the halfway mark on or at the halfway mark. It's close. We're looking forward to getting to the end of this season. We're looking forward to seeing what the rest of 2023 can bring. Can anyone stop Lars? He's won every Mini RPG of the Week in 2023 so far. We have another week coming next week. We look forward to seeing you all back here again for that. You won't want to miss it. So we'll see you all soon.
Bye.